Growing up in Southern California, I was lucky enough to visit the Disneyland Resort frequently. Whether it was day trips with my mom or week-long trips with my family from Canada, there was one thing that was almost always on our to-do list: Aladdin, a musical spectacular at Disney's California Adventure. Although I never felt much connection to the original 1992 movie, there was something about this show that really captivated the mind of a very young Roxy and never really loosened its grip. Even years after its closing, I still look back on the show fondly, and I consider myself very lucky to have gotten to see it so many times. However, to get a better idea of the Aladdin show, we have to go back. Way, way back. All the way back to— oh my god, no, not that far. Okay, bring it forward. A little more. A little more. Stop! Perfect. Okay, thank you. When California Adventure opened in February of 2001, the original show at the Hyperion was called Steps in Time. Unfortunately, the show closed only 8 months later on October 14th of that same year. The show was a jukebox musical with Disney favorites like Go the Distance from Hercules and Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid, with the third song, A Whole New World, feeling like an interesting foreshadow for the Hyperion's history. From reading different articles, it sounds like the original show was just the songs with different styles of dance. But when Disney tried to rework the story, it then revolved around a young child who is visited by a fairy godmother. When she realizes he has no dream, she takes him through the different worlds of Disney films. At the end of the show, the child realizes his dream and the fairy godmother magically vanishes. I wish I could tell you more than that, but that's basically the story. The show's opening features a fascinating projection of the child's parents, but it also feels very steeped in the late 90s, early 2000s technology and music. Now, the fairy godmother is not the fairy godmother we all recognize from Cinderella. Rather, she's just a generic fairy godmother in a very sparkly outfit, which I do enjoy. I can say that. The fascinating thing about the show is that they are the first, and to my knowledge, only Disney park show to ever use child actors, which I guess makes sense when you're located about 50 miles south of Hollywood. In the recording I watched, the fairy godmother was fantastic, and if I had seen this show as a child, I definitely would have loved it. The biggest setback is the heavy lack of set design. It's really giving modern Broadway stage design where everything is very rustic and industrial. Now, I have very little dance experience, but the dancing in the show was not awe-inspiring like so much of the Disney show choreography can be. Although the show isn't atrocious, I can see why guests would have been disappointed to have sat through a 20-minute show just for that. Because the show got such bad reviews, it was closed quickly and replaced by The Power of Blast, which, spoiler alert, had almost just as short of a run, playing from November 22nd, 2001 to November 2nd, 2002. The show had already been running in Epcot during the summer of 2001, and because the show relied so much on lighting effects, it would work so much better in an enclosed theater space than the open one it had been using. The show originally for Epcot was a shortened version of the Broadway show, Blast, which won the 2001 Tony Award for Best Special Theatrical Event and received both a Tony nomination and an Emmy Award for Best Choreography. Finally, what you all came here for, on January 16th, 2003, the Aladdin show opened and would remain so for almost 13 years. That being said, there was a slight blip in the timeline where Disney announced the show would be closing in August of 2010 to make way for the Toy Story musical that then played on the Disney Cruise Lines. However, after much backlash from the fans, Disney caved and kept the Aladdin show playing. So, after a very, very long history lesson, I'll now get into the brilliance of the show. I won't give a full play-by-play of the show, but instead do a little highlight reel to speed up the process. We're gonna break the show down into 4 parts: songs, set pieces and magic, puppets, and performances. Starting at the beginning, one jump ahead is the jolt of energy any show should have, especially after a more sleepy, expositional start explaining who Jafar is. The moving set pieces and the choreography make the entire stage feel so much fuller than it actually is, and easily conveys the bustling environment of an outside bazaar. There's an amazing illusion at the end of the song, but we will get there later. Once Aladdin finds the lamp in the Cave of Wonders, he is introduced to everyone's favorite blue character. No, not that one. And not that one either. There we go, Genie. This rendition of Friend Like Me brings the magic of the original version to the stage so well, with multiple performers in genie masks and some incredible acrobatics. It's hard to watch this number and not dance in your seat, and it helps validate your reasons for dragging your friends and family to the show. Not that I've done that, just hypothetically. Once granted his first wish to get out of the Cave of Wonders, Aladdin is granted his second wish to become Prince Ali Ababwa. This song also brings the magic of the movie to the stage really well, with massive puppets and huge ensemble numbers that fill up the stage and the aisles to really bring the audience into the story. Directly after the song Prince Ali, we find Jasmine in her room longing for an escape outside her palace walls. Her song, To Be Free, has forever been one of my favorite Disney songs, and it's a shame it didn't make it into the 2019 live-action film. The lyrical performances from the Jasmines were always incredible, and it was amazing how quiet the theater would get while she was singing, everyone captivated with her vocals and her story. Despite the original story having to be shortened, I'm really glad that they were able to make space for Jasmine to have a song. The next song to highlight is actually the last song in the show, the finale and the bows. Usually a song you can skip over on the soundtrack, but in this performance it is such an incredible and magical ending to the show that leaves audiences feeling warm and fuzzy as they resume their day. The costumes, choreography, ribbons, and sets make for such an epic finale, and it was always one of my personal favorite parts of the show, no matter how many times I saw it. Moving on to the set pieces and general magic. The beginning of the show starts with an exterior of the Cave of Wonders. Although not as imposing as the one from the original film, they do a great job of translating it to the stage. It's a great vibe setter to show audiences what they are in for and to set expectations for the rest of the show. Imagine walking into the show waiting for a dinky little amusement park show to be greeted with this massive Cave of Wonders set piece. As the poor innocent soul who Jafar sends into the cave is eaten up by the tiger, the mouth closes with a huge sound cue, leaving a disgruntled Jafar and Iago on the outside. I briefly talked about the set pieces for this song earlier, but the main concept of them is two main moving panels that not only hide parts of the set, but also allude to moving to different parts of the market. At the end of the song, Aladdin sings, "Wish me happy landing, all I gotta do is jump!" Where a different Aladdin from our main one jumps on wires across the stage, and our main Aladdin jumps out from behind one of the panels. Like the Cave of Wonders, having this illusion so early on in the show sets expectations for the audience about what more stunts and magic could be coming their way. Later in the show, Aladdin meets a disguised Jafar who takes him into the Cave of Wonders. We return back to the original set piece, but this time a quick transition takes us into the cave as we follow Aladdin down, down, down into the cave below. From above, we see the classic Jafar silhouette disappear as Aladdin ventures further down, and it's a great example of they didn't have to do it, but they did, and it makes it so much better. Similarly to the beginning, we have a false Aladdin on wires, and our real Aladdin is waiting in the wings to enter back on as normal. I assume that this is for one of two reasons. One, some actors are only allowed to do some things. Stunt actors do stunts, and other actors do other things, and usually this is because of unions. And two, the Aladdin costume that uses wires is probably slightly different than the normal Aladdin one, and the places where the wires go might be too obvious to the audience to use the whole time. For a friend like me, the set is fairly plain the whole time until we reach the final big chorus. Revealed to us is a massive staircase where Genie and all the minion genies fossy their way down the stairs to a classic Broadway number. This set and choreography elevate the show to a whole new standard of art and performance that hadn't quite been achieved until this moment. One of the reasons I've always loved Jasmine's song is due in big part to the set she sings it on. The beautiful balcony and the massive moon illuminating the stage almost floats warm wind into the audience that you'd feel in the desert. It always brought such a wonderful level of magic to the show that obviously only continues on throughout the rest of the show. Finally, rounding out the set pieces and magic category, we have, of course, the whole new world sequence and the magic carpet. After Jasmine's to be free, Aladdin meets her at the balcony edge and invites her onto the carpet. The couple floats away and begin floating over the audience on the carpet. Pseudo Aladdin and Jasmine wave to the crowd in a really beautiful moment in the song. It's exactly what you're looking for in a show at the Disneyland Resort, but that nowadays, the company might be less eager to shell out money for. Now moving on to my favorite category of puppets. Throughout the entire show, it's hard not to admit that a certain character is a real scene stealer, and this character is Iago. Although just a red-feathered bird, the puppeteering is beyond exceptional and has some incredible lines throughout the piece. Because Aladdin and Jasmine can come off a little too serious at times, both the Genie and Iago are perfect comedic characters to let off a little tension. Although Genie gets a lot of the credit for making the show what it was, and I think all of that is completely deserved, I think Iago also deserves a ton of attention as well for just the overall craftsmanship of the role. Finally, in the puppet category, we have all of the puppets in the Prince Ali section. Primarily the massive elephant that Aladdin rides in on. It's such a huge spectacle, especially considering he wanders through the audience. It was always so fun to go with people who hadn't been to the show before and to see their reaction to this, or to look around the theater and watch people's reactions to a massive elephant walking through the seats. Similarly to the magic carpet in A Whole New World, it's a level of showmanship that didn't need to be reached, but Disney did, and it completely paid off. Our next category, performances, starts with an unlikely character, but an important one at that, and that is the magic carpet. In order to allow for an accurate characterization to what we see in the movie, the magic carpet communicates in mostly over-the-top movements and a lot of gymnastics. It makes for such fun and dynamic choreography throughout the entire show, and also some really fun transitions from real carpet to fake carpet and then back to real carpet. Another incredible performance is Jafar. While mostly there to play as the butt of the joke, he does have some really amazing moments where he shines us further than that. I realize now this probably should have gone into the magic category, but when Jafar gets turned into the all-powerful genie at the end of the show, we have an amazing costume with a suit of Jafar and a big red genie. It's a super fun surprise for people who sat closer to the stage and maybe weren't expecting something to pop up right there. Now, no Aladdin, a musical spectacular critique would be complete without talking about the powerhouse that is the genie. One of the coolest things about this character is that the actor is able to take a spin on the beloved Robin Williams character, while also bringing in more pop culture references than you'll probably see in any other Disney show. While the show was running, his jokes consisted of a lot of Britney, Miley, and Kardashian family jokes, but it helped make the show feel fresh and new every time you went, while adding an easy aspect of returnability for each audience member.
Reading with you, improvising as, okay, now you're Aladdin and Genie, and this is your situation, and have a conversation with it.
Okay.
Just to see like if you can run with things, and do the song, do the dance combination. From that, it was like, all right, go in the next room. They're gonna take your measurements.
Whoa.
Doesn't mean you're cast, but it's like, just in case you're cast, they want to get to work on your costume right away. Then it's like, very nice to meet you. You'll hear from us one way or the other.
Okay.
And then I think it was about another week.
Okay.
And here's the thing. I knew the casting director from working with him on a show a few years before at Universal Studios. He calls me up and says, I have great news. We want to hire you in the show.
Okay.
And I'm like, that is great news.
Yeah.
And then he said, on a personal note, totally off the record, I would love to offer you the full-time position, but we don't have a full-time position available.
Oh, no.
We just have a call-in spot. I would get to go in for the 4 weeks of rehearsals.
Okay.
And then I'd get to go in like once a month for what they'd call a maintenance show or a clearance show, just to keep myself refreshed. Like if they did call me in.
Gotcha.
So that was the contract I was offered, and I'm like, yeah, I'll take it.
Cool.
That was Monday. So my callback was like a Friday, Saturday, something like that. That Monday, they called me back to make me that offer.
Okay.
That I want to say was like Thursday or Friday of that week. I wasn't supposed to start rehearsals for like another 2-3 weeks.
Okay.
Maybe a month. They call me back. This casting director calls me back and said, so remember when we offered you the standby position? I'm like, yes, that was just a couple days ago. Well, things have changed and a full-time position has opened up and we'd like to offer that to you. And I'm like, yes, please. So just as contract renewals came up, every year it was kind of like, do I still have a job?
Yeah, really.
And it could be like, do I still have a job or still have a full-time job? Are they going to, take me down to, part-time or call in or whatever? Fortunately, every year they kept renewing me, and I was in the 10 couple months, years that I was there, I was the only Genie to maintain a full-time position.
Wow.
The entire run.
Out of just curiosity, what was the other Universal show that you were in?
Oh, I was Beetlejuice in Beetlejuice's Rockin' Graveyard Review.
That is so cool.
That was so much fun. I got to sit around. I got to talk like this the whole time.
Exactly.
That is people. Fun. I'd go in the audience and just roast people. It was fun.
That's so fun. It is sort of similar roles in a way of like you get to break character just once, I guess, a little bit more.
Right, kind of breaking the fourth wall. Well, I was starting to think too. So with the Genie, I wore a fat suit.
Okay.
That was all padding.
Right.
Beetlejuice had like a padded shirt to make me,
oh, interesting,
bigger here.
Yeah.
Full face paint and everything like that. And both of my entrances in both shows were through a trap door in the stage. And I thought if I ever wrote an autobiography, it'd be called Fat Pads and Face Paint.
That's so good. Well, I look forward to that memoir. So again, in the TikTok, I know I keep going back to it, but
no, it's fine.
Talked about the rule that whichever Genie made the joke was the first one that got to perform that joke, which I thought was very interesting and also very kind. What was the process of coming up with the jokes? Would people in the cast come up to you and be like, hey, I've got this idea for a joke? And because so much of it was pop culture based, did you find it hard to keep up with pop culture? Was it more natural, or was it, you'd read the headlines some mornings and be like, we'll try this? It
wasn't often that, other cast members would go, hey, you should try this. Or they'd go, hey, did you hear about
okay,
so-and-so or
Gotcha.
such and such? And, come up with a joke like that, or it's like, oh, and occasionally it could be, you know, hey, it would be funny if maybe you tried something like this. So yeah, we're always, of course, open to that. In terms of like how we came up with them, like if there was something that we would work in, there were specific parts in the show, not necessarily written into the script, but it just kind of like worked out that that's where you could insert a joke.
Gotcha.
You know, of course, there are places where you absolutely could not do one because your line is like a technical cue and you have to say that. So everyone, you know, but we work it in such a way so there would be 2 genies working during the day. Right. We'd split the 4 shows. Okay. And so let's say I was the first genie of the day. I'd be sitting there in the makeup chair and they're putting on all the prosthetics and the paint and everything. And whoever's playing the second genie of the day would come in, just check in the makeup chair, letting you know I'm here. You don't have to do all 4. Just check in and, you know, are you doing anything new? Have you tried anything? And we'll bounce ideas off each other or something like that. And like someone might have an idea for a joke that for their genie might work in one place, but I have an idea for like a joke about that subject or about that pop culture reference, but I'll use it in a different place, just the way I'm doing it.
Interesting.
Or some genies could tell a joke one way. There was a couple genies that had jokes that I absolutely loved, but my genie couldn't get away with telling them.
Interesting.
The way
Okay.
we played the roles. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know that there was so much personality separately that each actor put into it. That makes a lot of sense though, in terms of just how you approach a role.
The way we approached it, it was basically a heightened version of your own personality.
Cool.
It was really just like, be who you are in that role. Because you had to make it your own. There was no way people weren't going to be comparing you to Robin Williams. So don't even try to be Robin Williams. Be you. That's how it worked. And well, you know, a lot of our jokes might have been the same because we'd share jokes. Like you had mentioned, if somebody comes up with a joke that somebody else likes, you know, it would be like, that's a really great joke. Like say I'm sitting in the makeup chair, I'm the first genie. And, you know, Jeff comes in and says, hey, I have this great idea for a joke. And I think it's hysterical. I can't wait to tell it. But because I'm first, I can't do it yet.
Interesting.
I have to wait till he's done his 2 shows and tells the joke before I have. And it was just kind of like a gentleman's agreement, a genie's agreement.
A genie's agreement.
The genie who comes up with the joke is the first to tell the joke. And after that, it's free game.
Were you able to take any of the physical props home from the show or any costume pieces? I know it's Disney, so it's probably very protected, but that's a great prop. That is so cool.
I was not able to get a lamp. A few people got lamps, and I really wanted a lamp.
Okay.
I was not able to get a lamp.
That's a shame.
And so I managed to get the menu.
That's pretty good.
So for anybody who's like not familiar with the show or vaguely remembers the show, there's the moment in Friend Like Me. Life is your restaurant and I'm your maitre d'. Try some from column A, try all of column B. So it has this is legitimately what it looked like on stage. There's this big piece of like electrical tape on here, but it makes it easy to open the menu. It's like a little tab.
Right.
You could just build one on. So, and then there's actually stuff written here.
Oh my goodness.
Course, monkey brain, prayer, that doesn't even say prairie, oysters, sauted, it's supposed to be sauteed, sauted mouse organs.
Oh my goodness.
And then desserts, cherries, jambolia, humdinger jucky juice, I think it's supposed to be juicy juice, and doopity-doo drippy poo.
Right.
Don't even know. Yeah, it was just something that there would, so it would be there. So even just like at a glance, it looked, oh yeah, there's something in the menu.
Well, that's. I mean, I think there's a typo in every single line, but that's perfect.
Oh yeah.
Like that's
it was just like, put something. We don't care what it is. Send.
Sauteed mouse organs is bold.
Sauteed mouse organs.
Sorry, yes, sauteed.
Yeah.
That's my fault. Sauteed. So one of my biggest questions actually when I was putting this episode together was that with a Broadway show, obviously tickets are sold and you can kind of estimate the attendance for that show. But when with the Hyperion, all the shows, you just sort of wander in. So was there any way to estimate guest attendance? Obviously during peak seasons you knew, but were there ever
I mean, you could tell by like what park attendance projections would be for the day.
Right.
It would either mean bigger or smaller audiences if there was like a special event or something like that.
Right.
Like when World of Color debuted or something like that. everybody's going to be at World of Color for like the evening shows. Nobody's coming to see us.
Gotcha. Okay.
We'd have a few people in there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's really, you could kind of get if you're going to have like a larger, smaller crowd, but you wouldn't really know until about showtime, whenever it is like lined up outside, if they were going to open up, you know, the second balcony or even the first balcony, if it was just going to be everybody on the you know, floor level.
Gotcha.
You wouldn't know. It was usually pretty busy.
Okay.
Every once in a great while, you'd have a really small crowd. Like if the weather was just awful and nobody was coming in and nobody was in the park, like park attendants were so low. And again, like something like there was something else going on in the park. We've had packed full houses that were just dead, like
really?
No energy coming from the audience, and audiences of, you know, 200-300 people or even 100 people that were just some of the rowdiest, most fun audiences we've had.
That's
so
great.
The size of the audience doesn't necessarily determine their energy or what the show's going to be like.
Interesting.
So you just go out and do the show that you do the best that you can, and it feeds, like your performance feeds off the audience. And sometimes, you know, if they're not giving it to you, it's just like, well, autopilot, and you just kind of do the show.
Yeah.
And you can't be mad at the people who didn't show up.
Interesting. That's good advice.
Like if you're looking at, it's like, wow, we're 2,000 people and there's only 100 people here. Well, those 100 people are there, so do the show for those 100 people. Don't be mad at those people who aren't there.
Are there any moments in the show during the process that either went so sideways? Because I know you talked about, at least specifically for the Genie, but you talked about when the carpet flipped over.
Carpet flipped, yeah.
I had never heard of that. That was terrifying. Yeah. And for you specifically, had to be perfected over time. And how was it working with trapdoors and lifts? I mean, obviously, I realize now you had experience with trapdoors and lifts, but was there a training process, or were they kind of like, oh, you know how to do this, you know, let's...
Even if I'd done it before, like every door is different. It's all, of course, about safety. They want to make sure, and of course, and this door worked different. This trap door worked differently from the ones at Universal. It was a different kind of design the way it worked. Okay. Even if it was the exact same thing, just for safety's sake, ticking all the boxes, they got to make sure that you've ridden it a few times. All the safety protocols are in place. You understand all the checks and balances, any abort buttons, who's calling what cues, and how the whole thing works. And just so you can get used to the speed of it going up, going down, they'll run it where they'll fault it on purpose. Okay. So if something happens where it either doesn't go up or doesn't go down, or somewhere in the middle will fault and stop, they'll run that too, just so should that happen, and it does and did, you know the process and you know what to do.
Gotcha.
So yeah, there was a whole like lift safety training morning that we all had to do. Yeah. Interesting.
So what was the process if on your first entrance, say, it just goes up halfway and you're...
So there was one time, it wasn't on my first entrance, it's when Jafar rubs the lamp.
Okay.
And makes me appear.
Right.
There was one time where it faulted like halfway. So literally just like what you're seeing of me right now from here up, just from the floor of the stage.
Oh God.
Looking around and looking at me, and the smoke clears and it's just me, just my upper body, just like this. It's like, and all you can do is just go, keep rubbing, keep rubbing. And at that point it goes into manual mode. So it's not like somebody's there with a crank, you know, making it go. And instead of just going like it does, it's just this really slow rise in a position. So I'm just like, and it's almost like a minute. We're just going, keep going. I'm coming. I'll be there.
Comedic timing though. Like, yeah, perfect. That it's the slower version of it.
And then there were times that same lift where like it wouldn't go at all. There have been a couple times where it wouldn't go at all. So you're down there in the pit below. Everything, for whatever reason, it just doesn't go. Well, in that instance, you got to run.
Great.
Because you're in like this little plexiglass case too. So they open the door, you go down like the few stairs that are there. You got to run through the pit, backstage through the halls, up through another staircase and around to the side of the stage, and then run in from stage left.
You talked about this a little bit, but because Genie is a character that's so full of life and like positivity and it feeds off the audience, how do you perform as that character when maybe things aren't so positive and you know, it's harder to tap into that immediately?
My daughter got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes during the run of that show, and it was like a big thing. She got rushed to the hospital and yada yada yada, and like once she was like stable and whatever, like I called in, I'm not going to work or whatever, but I had to go back to work, and she's still in the ICU and everything like that. So I'm sitting here doing the show knowing that my daughter is in the hospital. It's the show must go on. I mean, a lot of times, like I said before, you know, you might go into autopilot, or you might just like channel all that energy into something else to do, you know, might feed your performance or whatever. I've done it kind of sick where I've been losing my voice to the point where one time where I was just not doing it. And even stage managers went, "We're cutting you. We're going to, you know, we're throwing the other Genie into makeup now.
Gotcha.
Go home."
You know, it feels like it's sort of a bit of a family where they're like, okay, like,
yeah,
not because we don't like you, but because we need you to get better. To like,
well, and you make a point that wasn't in your questions or whatever, but you say it feels kind of like a family. This show was probably the most unique theater experience I've ever had and probably ever will have.
Wow.
We definitely call each other our Aladdin family. To this day, we still have our private Facebook page that we would use, and we still post to each other, like if we run into each other like out in the wild, you know, we'll post those pictures, look who we saw. Or again, it's the kind of thing, you know, people are moving and it's just like, hey, let's get together, you know, who can come together one last time before they take off. We've had people who again have like lost loved ones, and we'll like, you know, hide them from the chat so they don't see it, and it'll be like, we've set up you know, donate, you know, a PayPal donation or whatever. It's like, just send it all to my Venmo and we'll do a thing. And, you know, and so we'll all do stuff to help people out that way. It is, yeah.
Sweet.
And it's, you know, cast and crew, and it has been, yeah, it was very much a family atmosphere. It was probably the most supportive, welcoming environment. It didn't matter if you were with the show 10 years like I was, or if you were brand new to the cast in the last contract you were in. As a whole, we loved being together as a group.
That's so great.
We'd have fun backstage and play games, and we'd have special like holiday celebrations because of course Disney's open 365. Right. So we'd do potlucks and all sorts of stuff, and we had proms.
Really?
We'd throw big parties and have proms and dress up and
that's so
you know,
fun.
hire a DJ, guy who made like street tacos would come around, and
Perfect.
You know, we'd hire him to come out and feed us all. Oh yeah, we did all sorts of stuff together.
That's so much fun. Just going the extra mile to make a community is very sweet.
Yeah, I miss it a lot.
I'm sure. Me too, and I wasn't even a part of it. I can't even imagine. With both the Universal properties and the Disney theme park properties, is there any blank check role in a musical that you would want to play?
As every contract would be renewed, we were all given the opportunity, if we wanted to what they'd call cross-train into other roles.
Cool.
There were a couple times I'd considered like learning Iago or Jafar.
That'd be so cool.
Which would have been fun, but at the same time, considering they kept offering me, you know, 4 days a week as the Genie every time, I'm like, I'm pretty much set here, and this is a lot of fun. And it was kind of like, this is what I want to be known for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a little bit of an ego to it. So let's be honest.
When you're playing the Genie, I feel like you can
play the Genie.
Yeah.
So it would have been fun to change it up and do something different and not have to wear all that makeup and stuff. Sure. But yeah, just for the show, like Iago or Jafar would have been fun to be the villains. There was one time where one of our stage managers was very excited to go on a date.
Aww.
That he had, and was just like, if we can get this show done, like let's say the show started at 6 and it's supposed to be like a 45 to 50 minute show.
Okay.
We can get this show done by 6:42 at the latest. I'll throw an ice cream party for everybody the next day. I had a rule. I would still do my show. I'd do it fast.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm not cutting anything.
That makes sense.
And I did a 42-minute show.
That's pretty good.
Cooked. Just raced through that.
Right.
And sure enough, next day, David made good on it. And
yay, that's so good.
We got ice cream. We didn't want to do it too much because like, oh, they're setting a precedent. We can keep doing a short show.
You can be bribed.
No, we want to. We want to do it at a more comfortable pace. Like 45 to 50 was right in the pocket for that show. If we were able to prove like consistently that we could do a shorter show, they'd add another show. They'd add a fifth show.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they'd figured out how to do that. So
interesting.
We're going to do that.
I've seen videos of your final performance and the basically kind of homage that you did to all of the cast members.
So I knew I needed to do something special. Not just for my last show, but for the last show.
Yes.
And it was a couple weeks like leading up to it because it's coming, obviously.
Right.
And I'd be at home and I'm writing down ideas and coming up with joke ideas and what am I going to do? And I came into the whole thing like I did that whole run about how Jafar is, all the Disney villains wrapped up into one, and I came up with that whole bit. Most of that and that whole run that I did that last show was like almost 10 minutes. It's like 8 or 10 minutes, something like that.
Wow. Okay.
And with the exception of like that whole like boo boo yay, it was all stuff I've never done before.
Wow. Okay.
It was only performed that one time for that one show, and nobody knew it was going to be.
Okay.
I never told a cast member.
Okay.
I had no idea what was coming. I talked it over with stage management. I didn't tell them exactly what I was going to do. But I said, rest assured, I'm not going to mention Frozen, the show that was coming in.
Smart.
That was a big no-no.
Yes.
I'm not going to do anything that either disparages the show or the company or anything like that. But the idea of just like name checking everyone who'd played Genie, Aladdin, and Jafar, I came up with that maybe about a week before.
Wow.
I had that idea. And I reached out on our private Facebook group. I said, I need the names of everybody who played these roles. It took a couple days. So now we're getting to like 5 days before the last show.
Okay.
I said, okay, these are for sure all the Aladdins. These are for sure all the, right. So, okay. And then I took that list because I had the idea of, you're not the most evil villain I've ever had. I've had others and listed them. But I've also had good masters and listed them. All the genies loved them and listed them. That's how I came up with a structure for it.
Okay.
And then I took those names and I just kind of like wrote them in a way. Like if you watch it back, you'll see like a lot of them will like begin with the first letter.
Yes.
Like the John and Joseph, and
Yeah.
I organized them in a way that would just be easier for me to remember.
Right.
And there's like a pattern to them. There's like a rhythm and a music to them. So I could hear the rhythm in my head as I did it.
Okay.
And man, once I wrote that, I was reviewing those lists of names over and over and over and over and over just to get them. And just trying to remember all the jokes I was going to do leading up to that because I'd never done any of those jokes either.
Jeez. Okay.
So I was rehearsing it, we're now like 4 or 5 days and I had to like learn all this stuff that I'd written. It helped that I'd written it.
True. What was the audience like? Like who sort of was in the audience? Was it old cast members, old crew? Was it people?
Yes and yes.
Knew it was the final show and showed up and
everybody knew it was the final show.
Okay.
Especially like cause we closed the 10th of January, so like all through like the Christmas holiday and New Year's, we were doing fast passes for that show.
Oh my goodness.
People knew it was going away. It was going to be the last show. You had to get a fast pass. And even on that day, of course, we're doing fast pass. Right. Everybody wanted the last show.
I'm sure.
And I have video of it somewhere and people were posting it. The line from the theater went all the way out the entrance of California Adventure through the plaza to like where the buses were of people waiting in line to get a fast pass to see the show.
That's crazy. I mean, it makes sense, but that's
and it was all randomized.
Oh my goodness.
So you didn't know if you were going to get a last show ticket or not.
Interesting.
So we all, as a cast, got 4 comps to that show.
Great.
Then there were a whole bunch of former cast members.
Okay.
They saved seats for the cast members who were there that day who weren't in the last show, so they could watch.
Okay.
A bunch of old crew, bunch of old, stage managers came back. Couple of the higher ups from the entertainment department, of course, were there. Oh. There were some VIPs invited. I don't totally remember who, but again, like legacy pass holders, people who came to the show a lot and always like took really great, like high quality photographs of the show.
That's cool.
Would give it to us on disc and post them, whatever.
Aww.
They gave them passes to the last show.
Great.
It's like free advertising for the show and whatever. And look at what you've done for us. Come to the last show. So they gave them passes.
That's sweet.
So like fast passes for that last show were really limited and scarce to get into that.
Interesting.
So yeah, it was a rock concert. It was just the rowdiest, most, I mean, when you watch the video and you hear that audience. And like with my entrance, you know, I could have stood there probably for a good couple minutes and let that go. But it was also the same thing. So like, let's pace this. Let's still do the show.
Uh-huh.
So
another question with the last show, I was watching it recently and it had been a bit since I had rewatched it. And I forgot that at the end, after you have been, you know, freed, that you say, carpet, let's go home. What was the decision of that? Were there other lines that you went through of like, okay, I could say this, I could say that? Did you tell the person playing the carpet that you were going to say that? Or was it just...
Told no one.
Oh, jeez.
I had the inspiration for that one. I was like, what'll I say?
Yeah.
I was just driving home one night. This was like after we found out the show was closing, after I found out that I was going to do the last show.
Right.
Like, okay, well, this one has to be special. And I'm driving home, and I'm just driving home when I think what I was going to say and just like going through the moments, whatever. And I thought, oh my God, like I got choked up thinking about it. I knew that line 2.5, 3 months before I ever delivered it.
Wow. Just to be sitting on that feels like I would have to tell somebody. I'd be like,
oh my God.
Oh,
yeah. So,
cool.
Yeah. And people came up to me afterwards. Like a couple of people just smacking me. It's like, what are you making me cry on stage?
Yeah. No, I
still have lines to give.
Like you said, it's a family. You were with these people for over 10 years and for it to suddenly be over, I can't imagine having to lose that. I know somewhere along the line there was a brief blip where Toy Story was going to take over the Aladdin show. What was that process? And then what was also the process of them telling you just kidding, and then a few years later being like, just kidding, you guys are going? Rumors,
of course, were bubbling, like, oh, we're going to close, we're going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, and it was so uncool the way they did it.
Okay.
They had people coming in, like measuring off the theater. They were marking stuff and like making notes. And there would be like things like backstage, like what things would be used for and checking the measurements of the stage, until finally one day they gathered the cast in the scene shop, which is like right behind the stage. Mm-hmm. They gathered us all in the scene shop one day to, you know, one of the heads of entertainment, Disney Entertainment, had come down. Big old thing, you know, want to let you know officially, you know, and congratulations on a fantastic 7-year run, blah, 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 blah. This is what's going to be happening. This is about how much longer until the show closes. And again, it was like a 3 or 4 month warning or a 6 month warning. Like they gave us like a little bit of notice, obviously. Like, you're all going to be out of work next week.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they wanted to have time to, you know, get the thing rolling, and then
that makes sense.
You know, there was still a lot to do. Apparently, it was seriously 2 or 3 weeks because like a lot of planning had been happening, whatever. And I guess there were a lot of like guest surveys that were going around.
Interesting.
You know, what do you think of this? And blah 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 blah. And just with one, logistics. 2, feedback. And I guess there was, so how our show went from the park to the cruise ships, Toy Story was on the cruise ships.
Yeah.
And they were going to expand it to come to the park. Apparently it wasn't doing so well on the cruise ships. And it just kind of got to the point where it's just like, in terms of like time and money and reviews and whatever, there's like, maybe we're better off keeping Aladdin. They gathered us all in the theater and brought us all in. And we're all sitting there just going, every time there's a meeting like this, it's never good news.
Yeah.
And we kind of knew it was coming because, again, there were rumblings.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But nothing official had been made. So they told us it was early September of 2015. So it was just about 4 months notice.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then, but they wanted to tell us first this time.
Good.
Because the next morning, it was in all the papers, it was in all the social media sites, Aladdin's closing, Frozen's coming in. So they gave us, once they told us and made phone calls, and that was the other thing too, they made phone calls, they put out an email blast, they reached out to the entire cast. To their credit, they didn't just tell us in the room. They told us in the room first.
Nice.
And then they reached out to everybody else, knowing that we were doing it too, but management wanted to be sure we're going to be the ones to tell them.
Have you seen the show at all?
Yeah, I did finally see the show. I boycotted it for a couple of reasons. One, just because, took my job away. Two, I was never a big fan of Frozen. I didn't really care for it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I knew people in it, I had friends in it and whatever, so I wanted to support.
Yeah.
So I actually finally saw it on my birthday in March of 2020, like just before everything went kablooey and shut down.
Jeez.
So I saw it like 2 weeks before everything shut down. Once the audience had cleared, I hung out. And so a bunch of cast members that I knew from Aladdin came out. Crew members that I knew from Aladdin who were still working on Frozen all came out. So I got to say hi and hugs and pictures. And the cast got so used to me in the makeup.
Sure.
That there was one day we had a big technical problem, and like we did the first show, we couldn't do show 2. We weren't sure, and they didn't think we were going to do show 3, but we all had to hang around. We might do show 4.
Okay.
It was basically a big long lunch.
Right.
And again, Sam, who was the Aladdin for that last show, we're in the green room, in the break room, and they're making the announcement, we're cutting show 2. It looks like, you go to lunch, and it looks like we're probably going to cut show 3, but we're not cutting you yet. We might do show 4.
Gotcha.
So everybody's like, let's go in the park. Let's go ride a ride or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm in there full makeup, like my smock and whatever. I'm in there full makeup. And Sam turns to me and goes, hey, you want to go ride California Screamin'? And I looked at him and went, yeah, let's do that. It took him a second to realize, oh, right. You can't go out there. Because I look like this. So the whole cast just takes off. And I'm just sitting there. I'm so lonely.
It's a shame you couldn't have done like some sort of meet and greet of but
I couldn't because I wasn't the park genie. I wasn't. They have that with like it looks like the Robin Williams head.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was not the genie of the park. I was the genie in the show.
So after the show, now that the show has been done for, I guess
over 7.5 years.
Wow. Okay. Gotcha. So I saw that you were working at Universal for a bit, and then just kind of in those 7.5 years, what else have you been up to?
All right. So I'll give you a quick rundown of the 7.5 years.
Yeah.
Show closed. I started work. So show closed on Sunday the 10th.
Okay.
On Tuesday the 12th,
wow.
I was back at Universal Studios to be the conductor of the Hogwarts Express in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
That's so great.
So I, had to do your whole, of course, Universal onboarding and your Harry Potter Wizarding World training because the land hadn't opened yet. This is when it was brand new.
Okay.
So they were still building stuff in there. We did soft opening was sometime in late February.
Okay.
Had to go through dialect training and all that sort of stuff. So I did that until May of the following year. I was doing a couple other things too, but that was my main.
Okay.
Until May of the following year, and moved to Texas.
Wow.
We'd been looking to get out of California for a while.
Okay.
Stupid expensive to live there.
Yes.
I moved back to California. I'm going to reboot my stand-up career. So I'm like, yeah, all right. And I found a place actually not too far from here. And I did an open mic and did 5 minutes. And I was like, damn it. Yeah, this is what I do. This is what I love doing. People want to follow me on my Instagram and my TikTok. It's Dylan White, ITSDYLAN White.
Perfect.
On both.
Great.
DylanWhite.com is my website. So there's a link on both my Instagram and TikTok that'll take you to either my link tree or my website where it shows where I'm performing, all my upcoming appearances. If there are ticket links, those are always on there. If it's a free show, there won't be a ticket link. It means you can just show up.
Perfect.
Most of my shows right now, of course, are in the Phoenix area, but whenever I'm traveling, those links are on there too.
Perfect.
And I'm posting clips and all sorts of stuff on there. I just posted a new one this morning.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. Genuinely, I can't thank you enough for taking so much time out of your day to tell me about
this. Was so much fun. It was so great to meet you in person.
Yeah, great meeting you as well. And if I could go back and tell my 10-year-old self feel like you're going to talk to the genie one day, I would expect. So this is
so I gotta say that is so crazy for me to think about, just that, because I don't feel like I'm that kind of famous or whatever, but there's so many people who reach out to me and say, yeah, I grew up watching you. I'm like, that's weird. But you think about it, like, I didn't really realize the impact I was having on people's lives until the show was closing.
I'm
and
sure.
then people were reaching out to me out of the woodwork, and it was so humbling. And so, like, there were times I would just like to the verge of like happy tears. Like, this is what I'm doing in the world. I never want to take that for granted. If I ever do, feel free to find me and just slap me.
Cool. I'll put that. I'll make a note.
This is being recorded.
It is.
So you have my advance permission that if I'm ever getting too big for my britches, Roxy can come out and just go, stop it.
Fantastic.
I'll realize I get what I'm doing. Okay.
But I do look forward to seeing you out in LA, hopefully at some point.
Yeah, that would be so great to meet you in person.
Absolutely, yes.
It's hard to explain how amazing the show is without sitting down with someone and making them watch it, as I have definitely done to multiple friends and partners, but I hope I did a good job of pulling out the highlights. Sadly, on January 11th, 2016, the Aladdin show dimmed its lights for the very last time. I remember watching the posts roll in about the show ending, and it felt like an incredibly sentimental night. I don't remember the last time I went to the show, but I can tell you I very much miss it and often watch bootlegs of it on YouTube. Hi, this is Editing Roxy here. Something I realized that I forgot to mention about this show is that they always had a really high level of diversity in the show, whether it was gender diversity, racial diversity, but even like body diversity. There was a really wide range of just like body sizes, but even differences in ability. There was always, I mean, not always, but there was frequently a woman in the show that was in a wheelchair, and she was in the ensemble, and they accommodated that so well. You wouldn't really even know that like there wasn't supposed to be somebody in a wheelchair in the ensemble, and it was always really great to see. And I think that seeing that at such a young age was very impactful for me, and I'm sure many other people. So yeah, I forgot to mention that, but it is very important. Anyways, carry on. On May 27th, 2016, the Frozen show opened at the Hyperion a mere 3 years after the original film's release. As I'm sure you can already see, my opinions on the Frozen show will be incredibly biased due to my deep love for the Aladdin show, but I can definitely find the good sides of the show. The show blends physical sets and projection sets very well, almost similar to that of Escape from Gringotts or the Transformers ride. Like the Aladdin show, the Frozen show does a good job of leaning into more classic Broadway singing, dancing, and overall techniques. The show also uses the incredible Sven and Olaf puppets that are so hard not to watch when they're on stage. The actors are so engaging, and they are a perfect recreation of the characters in the film. Now, my biggest gripe with the show is not the overheard songs, the adult actors playing children, or the fact that it just isn't the Aladdin show. My biggest gripe lies with the monstrosity that is the Wolfpack. When I was at the show for the first time and I realized we were coming up on the Wolfpack scene, I was so excited to see what Disney was going to do. I looked back on my time seeing The Lion King on Broadway and how terrifying the wildebeest stampede is, with physical actors on the side and a rolling background behind the characters. But this? When the actors in the weird wolf masks swam across the stage, I noticed the screen in the background had some red eyes, teasing the appearance of wolves there too. So I thought, oh, they'll probably be real-looking wolves to help our brain fill in some of the details. And boy, was I wrong. It's just a video of people in the same wolf outfit doing the same weird swimming run thing. I don't get it. And it's always really bothered me. So anyways. The unfortunate thing about these wolves is that, in my eyes, they slightly detract from the overall impressive nature of the show, and even in the scene, the sled and Sven start to levitate off the ground when they jump off the cliff. It's a really great effect, and it translates the animated film to stage really well. My last gripe with the show is an unfortunate one, and I want so badly to say it doesn't bother me, but as a big special effect and onstage illusion fan, I was really disappointed when I saw this. Disney Dan has a great video on the evolution and overall variance of Elsa's dress transformation in the Let It Go number. Now, obviously, it's really important to take into account the budgets of all of these different productions and also the frequency per day and week at which the performances happen. For example, let's say the Frozen show does 3 shows a day, 7 days a week during the peak season of summer. That's already 21 shows a week. For Broadway, the highest number of shows per week a company typically does is 8, Tuesday through Sunday nights, plus matinee shows on Wednesday and Saturday. so the Hyperion is already doing almost triple the amount of shows in a week that the Broadway cast does. Additionally, the audience at the Broadway show have all paid for their seats. Meanwhile, and please stick with me here, none of the guests in the Hyperion are technically paying guests, meaning none of them paid for entrance to that show specifically, but instead paid entrance to the park. So on Broadway, all of the funds made in a given night at the Frozen show, which I actually realize now is no longer on Broadway and is only touring, but, hypothetically, go to the Frozen show and the maintenance of such. The funds that go towards the show at the Hyperion is also split among upkeep of attractions, payment of cast members, and insane salaries of CEOs. Normal salaries of CEOs. All of this to say, the blackout during Elsa's dress transformation at the Hyperion does seem like a cop-out, but it makes sense given the audience and budget of the production. It's not ideal, and it does feel like it stalls the song, or in film kid terms, it really pulled me out of the story. However, on a 3-show-a-day schedule, it makes the most sense. Because of the method of this quick change, though, it does allow for some really unfortunate mishaps, which Disney Dan also put together. When I was doing my research for this video, I came upon a Disney Parks blog post from December 2015, where they were talking about how the Hyperion had a special performance at the show for fans and then participated in a talkback and a meet and greet after the show. Hubert, thank you Hubert, commented some information that he learned during the talkback. He said, "It was a challenge to cut the story down from a 100-minute movie to an originally 20-minute to 30-minute stage show. Early on, it was decided to focus on the buddy aspect of the story between Aladdin and Genie. The script was designed to bring the two characters together as quickly as possible. It was necessary to cut the non-talking animal characters from the story. This included Aladdin's monkey friend Abu and Jasmine's pet tiger Raja. Iago was kept because most of Jafar's dialogue with other characters was false, and the dialogue between Jafar and Iago helped show the villain's motivations. Jasmine originally had a larger role in the story. Although her part was cut down, she did gain a new song, To Be Free, written by composer Alan Menken. It was felt that the song was necessary to help the audience sympathize with Jasmine's situation/character. The carpet character in the stage show was played by a female actor to help balance a cast that was felt to be too male-dominated. Originally, there was not supposed to be a lot of ad-libbing by the Genie character. Like in the movie, much of the ad-libbing took place in the early Cave of Wonder scenes. As the Genie's role became larger, the length of the show was extended. This insight makes so much sense given the way the show runs, and the decision to make the Aladdin show more of a buddy comedy than a love story, although there are still parts of that imbued in the script, is fascinating. But that isn't where my venture through the comments ended. I'm not one to go through the comment section, and this reminded me why. I found some of these comments so frustrating to read, and although they are technically from a different time, it still brings light to some problems. In most of the comments, people complained about the Frozen show limiting its audience. Meanwhile, Aladdin was able to entertain a larger demographic. This leads into a much larger conversation that I'll try to keep as short as possible, but it's a topic I find really fascinating. By saying that Aladdin appeals to a larger audience than Frozen furthers the idea that women-led stories are only for women, meanwhile male-led stories are for everyone. If you look at the size of the roles of each of the characters, Kristoff and Jasmine mirror each other very closely, being the love interests that, although they do have their own independence and storylines, don't further the stories as much as the main characters do. Anna and Elsa mirror Aladdin the closest because of their agency in the story and their role as main characters. Someone in the comments points to the merchandise to show this discrepancy in audience clientele by saying that almost all the merchandise for Frozen is made for girls. Meanwhile, the merchandise for Aladdin was able to appeal to both genders. Considering the powerhouse that was the Frozen movie, with a $1 billion gross worldwide and a certified fresh 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, still almost 10 years later, it's clear to see the film was a smash success. I understand the idea that Disney probably wants to make their park offerings as 4 quadrants as possible, but even if you could make the argument that Frozen is more for women, God forbid there's something made just for young girls to enjoy and feel seen by. So because of this and my ultra-feminist leanings, I now say that putting Frozen in the Hyperion was a great choice. Although I don't find it as awe-inspiring as the Aladdin show was, it was still an important addition to the park to allow fans of the movie to re-enter into the world of Arendelle. As I'm sure most people watching this video are aware, Frozen has now closed its doors to make way for a completely new show, Rogers the Musical. At first, I was a little wary about this addition, but after seeing some promotional footage for it that Disney has released, I'm incredibly excited to see how this goes. It's a great way to integrate the Hyperion into Avengers Campus, and it shows that Disney is actively working to expand the land without demolishing what is already there. Although I haven't seen Hawkeye, I have seen the clip of Rogers the Musical from the show, and it's such a great self-commentary on IP and cash grab capitalism from the IP and cash grab capitalism king itself. Man, if you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my rantings and ramblings about a topic that wound up being significantly longer than I expected. I learned so much putting this video together, and I hope you did as well. And a huge thank you to Dylan White for being a part of this video. I had a great time talking to him, and you should definitely follow him on social media. If there's any videos or topics that you're looking to see, let me know in the comments. I'm also on Instagram at RoxyLandMedia, so stay tuned there to find out about new videos and more adventures. See you all next time.